All right, welcome everyone to another episode. On today's episode, alongside co-host Bianca Léger, we interview a high-performance tennis coach who helps athletes maximize their potential both on and off the tennis court. He's currently working as a graduate assistant coach at the University of Texas at Dallas. He's a former Marine who served in the Marine Corps from December 98 to October 2007 and a former physical education teacher. He's also a level 3 enlisted coach and founder of Athletes First, where he's dedicated to developing athletes by teaching players, parents, and coaches how to consistently move forward. Welcome to the winner's circle, Clint Laukhuf.
Dude, thank you, Derek. That was such an amazing intro.
Well, it's amazing all the things that you're doing. And we're going to get all into that story. But before we do, I'm just going to introduce the goal of this conversation, and it is really to uplift, inspire, and empower anyone listening along. And as such, all the questions, they're pretty positive, and this first one gets us started on that foot. And that is, right here, right now, what do you love about your world? Not the external world, but your world, Clint Laukhuf, in this moment, in this present time?
The number one thing that I love right now is that I'm still learning. I'm back in school, and at the same time, I'm working with athletes from elementary school up through national level college players and getting to share what I've learned with them.
Beautiful. And in all these hats you wear, what would you say is your mission, your overriding mission in all that you do?
To create the biggest impact possible. And that was introduced to me years ago when I was on a discovery call for the Strong Coach. And I made a comment that I'm not going to try to create an impact, because the way I show up, I will connect, there will be an impact. So I don't need to try. And Danny Rios goes, "Hey brother, that's a limiting belief. What would happen if you tried?" And so it took the breath from me, and I've embraced that as my mission since then.
Mm-hmm.
I have curiosity about this. I just want to dive into it a little bit more. I also feel like it resonates with me to not try so hard. Do you feel like there's a difference in your interaction with people since you kind of change your mind frame about that?
Oh, 100%. 100%. The change came from being passive in the interactions to being active.
Yeah.
And it really strengthened my position, especially in areas when I'm interacting with athletes or parents, in that I know what my mission was. Where before I was trying to read the room, I was trying to sell something, I was trying to connect, and all of that became secondary to the idea of creating an impact by giving what I know.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. So how are you creating that impact? How are you creating the biggest impact possible? What does that look like in the current day?
The goal with Athlete First is to create generational change in both directions. And so what I mean by that is, for athletes' children, their next generation, to be better because of the language, the mindset, the goal setting pieces. The flip side to that is for their parents and their grandparents to be influenced by what they're going through. So creating generational change in both directions is the goal.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you're currently doing that in your graduate assistant tennis coach role at the University of Texas of Dallas, and then also with Athletes First, what you founded. Let's get into the origin story of Athlete First. Why did you create this program?
One of my frustrations as a coach was how other coaches felt ownership of their players, their athletes. And I felt the same way as a young coach, that it's my athlete. Another frustration was parents seeing a lot of value in themselves because of what their kid was doing. And what Athlete First it's a translation. And so it's not about you, it's about the athlete. And the other piece to that for athletes is the things that make you a good athlete, the hard work, the dedication, the determination, take those and spread them to other areas of your life. And so the name has a double meaning, and both to athletes, it's one message, and to parents and coaches, it's another.
So what got you into this? Like, let's track back the origin story of you beginning to work with athletes in the first place. What's the origin, the story of you becoming a coach?
So when I was in the Marine Corps, I was on deployment during September 11th. I went back and was part of the invasion of Iraq in 2003. And then my final deployment was in 2005. And I knew I was getting out of the Marine Corps, and it was like, what are you going to do? And I knew I didn't want to sit in an office, and I knew I wanted to wear comfortable shoes. And from there, coaching was pretty much the only thing I was qualified to do. That's first summer I got out, I did everything from tiny tots 4-year-olds to high-level juniors to adult leagues and drills. And I noticed in that first few months that I have an incredible patience for kids, and I didn't for adults. and so the natural progression was to go deeper in that coaching of kids. And the mindset piece actually came from going down the physical world. My introduction to On It, and hearing of their principles. And one of the comments that John Wolfe made was, good information doesn't displace good information. And when I heard that, it was a huge sigh of relief, because I knew a lot of good stuff, both from the Marine Corps, from previous coaches, and I felt that there was a conflict in what I was trying to teach. And that one comment created alignment and a foundation. So from there, I've been coaching coaching tennis in every realm possible. So from very high-end private clubs to city facilities in downtown Dallas to high school and now college.
Mm-hmm. And you grew up playing tennis? Like, when did tennis come into your life?
So I had the same high school tennis coach that both my parents had. And so my parents actually moved while I was in junior high, so that when I chose tennis in ninth grade as my sport, I had their coach. And me and my wife were on the same tennis team. Our first date was prom night, because neither of us were going. And so my absolute favorite picture was taken by my father-in-law, and it was me, my wife, her mom, my parents, and then coach just happened to be sitting on the next table, saw the picture, and basically photobombed that picture. And so from ninth grade until my freshman year of college, it was 100% tennis. I got frustrated in college. I didn't understand what recruiting was. I was on the bottom of the ladder, and the coach kept talking about the 4 guys he was recruiting to come in, and 3 were graduating. And my frustration was, oh, I'm going to be a further step down after busting my ass for the last year. So I ended up quitting tennis, and it wasn't till deciding to coach to wear comfortable shoes that I came back to it. So since then, like I love the sport. When I came back from that deployment, I still had 2 years in the Marine Corps. And during that time, I played a tournament every weekend. And so I felt self-conscious about my playing experience to be a coach. So I had to be a better player. And so I played every weekend. When I got out, went to school, I actually played for the coach that I'm coaching under now, as his graduate assistant. So I played for him. That's a unique experience, being in your 30s and playing against 18 and 19-year-olds. And then I've been all in on coaching since then.
So what about tennis do you love? Like, why this passion for tennis?
The biggest reason is that there are no real excuses. You can't blame it on the officials. You can't blame it on coaches. You can't blame it on the weather, sun, because it's the same for both. There's no one calling plays. It is you against another person, or it's you and a partner against another pair. And when it comes down to it, it's the best you've got today against the best they've got today. A lot of athletes can use, coach's favoritism as an excuse, or the calls, or running out of time. There's so many things about tennis that just eliminates those excuses.
And how have you translated that knowing that you've learned on the tennis courts to your life?
I wouldn't say it's been a translation. It's become who I am. And so I'm very much a action taker. Like, if there's a problem, then let's solve it. And I'm not sure which came first. Was it tennis or was it that mindset? But those two things are very, very connected.
Yeah, they're corresponding. Yeah.
So what drew you to serve for the Marines, to join the Marine Corps?
I always knew that I wanted to serve. When I was in high school, I applied to go to the service academies to be an officer. Ended up transferring to Texas A&M. They have a big ROTC program, and I found out about quality spreading. And what quality spreading is where they take the top third of the top third, they get their first choice of jobs. The top third of the middle third, they get their first choice. The top third of the bottom third gets their choice, and then they repeat. And where I saw myself was not the top third of the top third, but one of the strongest people. And the idea of not having the first choice, was really frustrating. At the same time I found out about that, I met a guy who was running a SWAT school, and they needed college students to be the bad guys so that the police officers going through the SWAT school could handcuff and throw around people. And so I volunteered for this. And as a thank you, the guy said, hey, whatever classes that we're going through, you can come out here and be part of, whatever fits in your schedule. And so I skipped 3 weeks of college and just went out there and took part in everything I could. Got to know the instructor, and he was talking about the Marine Corps, jumping out of planes, scuba diving, and he made the School of Infantry sound sexy. And I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. And so it was I'm tired of school, wanting some excitement, and the stars aligned, and I met that guy at the right time. And the School of Infantry is not sexy. So, but yeah, once I got into the Marine Corps and was after boot camp, I tried out for reconnaissance. That's one of the elite units, one of the elite jobs in the Marine Corps, and got to do the jumping out of planes and scuba diving and all of that stuff. And I'm so thankful for those experiences.
I'm sure fear would have arisen for you many times throughout your time in the Marines, whether that be at camp or in deployment. What have you learned about fear from your time in the military, and that you currently keep on your tool belt as you go about your mission today?
Uh, so after I had passed the screening and was waiting to go to the course, we were in this like holding pattern at on a Navy base, and so no job, low rank. We did all the crap jobs on the base, but on Fridays, um, we would get some sort of training, something cool. And my first Friday there, we did rappelling off of a tower, but it was simulating going through the floor of a helicopter. And so it was a three foot by 3 foot hole that you'd have to jump down and rappel through. And so as I'm standing over the hole, my knees start shaking, and the old master sergeant who had been in forever, that was running the training, like grabs me by the collar, pulls me up and we're like nose to nose. And Lance Corporal, are you afraid? Are you afraid of heights? And my response was, no, Master Sergeant. And he smiles and goes, me too. We don't got to like what we do. We just got to do it. And like that interaction stayed with me the whole time. I didn't realize how much it had stayed with me until this past November. I spoke at a high school and was thinking about my stories and what the message was going to be when I spoke for Veterans Day from the high school, and it was that story came front of mind, and the idea of making decisions that you're going to be proud of later on. Like, time's going to pass, the moment's going to pass, and all you're going to be left with is the memory, the story. What choice are you going to make that you're going to be proud of in the future? And so that's the biggest thing I've learned about fear is so much of it's up here, and whatever we're going through will pass, and to own it.
Mm-hmm.
Love that.
Words of wisdom. Another area of learning, I'm sure, during your time in the Marine Corps was about team and working as a team, and the importance of that and the lessons learned from that. What have you learned about being a good teammate from your time in the Marine Corps, and how did you translate that to being leading a tennis team or being on a tennis team?
True teams are special. And so what I mean by true teams is it's where everyone involved is putting in more than they're taking. It's the idea that our success comes together, that everyone's going to need a hand at some point. But you've already given so much to the cause, to the group, to the people you're with, that it's easy to accept support. And so it was really tough to find that outside of the Marine Corps. And so it felt like everyone's taking care of themselves, even to the detriment of the people around them. And once I started feeling that way, that's all I started noticing. And so one of the things that I've recognized since then is whatever we say, whatever we think, whatever we start noticing, we're going to notice more of those things. And if we're frustrated and don't have a way of taking control of our frustration, then it's going to grow. And there's always something to be grateful for. There's always someone there, whether you notice it or not. And the thing I've noticed most about being on a team is looking for those interactions, looking for the kids or the teammates or whoever's around that's giving more than they're taking, and acknowledging that, having other people acknowledge that, whether it's in a group setting or one-on-one. That acknowledgement of we're in this together, we're working for a greater cause, is the foundation to strong cultures.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for that. That's such an amazing reminder, because the coach, everybody's got their eyes, you're the model, and you're also directing the lens of the team. So to orient it that way, that's a massive impact. Massive.
Mhm. So
Yeah.
you shared the foundations of a good team, of a strong team. What are your personal foundations for a strong human? What are the foundational self-care elements that you use to attend to your physical, your mental, your emotional, and your spiritual? Make it take one at a time, even though that they all they have the ability to play in all four dimensions.
Um, so not real sure on the elements that make a good human, but my personal philosophy is do good, move forward, and be free. And when those things are in alignment, it allows me to create the biggest impact possible. When those things are out of alignment, I recognize that frustration grows in me. I recognize like either anger or headaches or some sort of physical manifestation when I start living out of alignment. And I've had those beliefs, those philosophies for years, but it's only been probably the last year or two that I've recognized when I'm out of alignment that those manifestations happen. To answer the other question, how did you word it? Physically take care of.
Yeah, what are your physical self-care tools? What are your mental self-care tools, your emotional self-care tools, and your spiritual self-care tools that help you optimize your being?
My physical is also tied to the spiritual. For me, like moving the steel mace has been incredible connection between the physical and the spiritual, mental. It's one of the ways where I can zone out and just move and feel whatever I'm feeling. The thing I love about the mace is the freedom that it provides, freedom in movement. The whatever rules there are, those rules are also meant to be broken. For the mental, this was something I actually struggled, like while I was a school teacher, was the idea that unplugging from everything and still trying to read something, trying to be productive. And one of my coaches was like, no, if you want to veg out. If you want to watch an episode of The Mandalorian, watch the episode of The Mandalorian. And it was accepting the joys that come from a series, or the joys that I felt playing, a video game for a little while. And when I started doing that, I also noticed when I listened to podcasts, I was absorbing that when I had that what I would label before as guilty pleasures, it allowed me to get more out of other interactions.
I love that. I feel like giving ourselves permission to receive those pleasures that we used to judge about ourselves, it does have that impact. It's true with the other people, because then we're in reception mode a little more. So it's interesting to recognize that.
and to recognize it, to accept it. But then on a Saturday morning, I ended up going 4 hours. And then at the end of that 4 hours, my initial reaction was like, wait, no, it's done. I'm here. Like, let's go on with everything else. And so being able to accept that time was more than I intended. But
goes back to the acceptance of this human experience and the self-compassion. Also, we tend to be so hard on ourselves. But yeah, we look for balance, I guess, somewhere in there.
Definitely.
So the steel mace has helped you connect with freedom. And before we get into the steel mace, let's discuss freedom a little bit more. I think that's particularly important as you fought for the freedom of your country. What does freedom mean to you, Clint?
Freedom is simply the ability to pursue what makes you happy. And as long as my pursuit of my happiness doesn't infringe on your pursuit of your happiness, there's no issue.
Mm-hmm. From your experience with those you coach, what gets in the way of people's freedom?
A lot of things. So some of it is simply a misalignment between an athlete's like expectations and what their parents' expectations are, their coach's expectations. Some of it is fear of the future, fear of not being successful based on someone else's definition of success. It comes down to that misalignment and expectations, and then the fear of the unknown, the fear of failure, fear of judgment.
How do we overcome that?
Recognizing that I have zero control of how you see me. I have zero control over how my parents see me, how they judge. And that if I'm living in alignment with my beliefs, with what I know is good, with what I'm striving for, and I'm proud of myself, then the people that care about me, that love me, will be proud of me also. But if it's the other way around, where I'm trying to do stuff for them, then I'm giving away the power as far as how I feel. I'm giving away my freedom on someone else's expectation. And when you flip that to athletes, I've had that exact conversation where I talk about, like, I want you to like me, but if you don't, it's not going to change how I feel about me. And then sometimes there's a little switch with that, just that little statement there.
Mm-hmm.
Did that answer your question, Derek?
Yeah, absolutely. And so we kind of talked about freedom. I want to talk about moving forward. So we've talked about what prevents people from being free. What prevents people from moving forward, and what exactly is moving forward?
So there's two ideas with moving forward. The first is it's a translation from being stuck. I don't want to be stuck. And so moving forward is the affirmation to being stuck. A lot of teenage athletes will look around and say, I'm doing more work than so and so. I'm better than them, but I don't have their results. Their beliefs aren't matching what's happening, and it creates that feeling of stuckness. The other piece of moving forward takes two components. One is knowing where you are and knowing where you want to go and moving in that direction. And so if you don't know where you are, it doesn't matter which direction you're going, because you don't know if that's forward or not.
Mm-hmm. How can we find, and how do you help your clients and those that you coach know where they are?
Through questions. So if you want to become a professional athlete, if you want to become get a college scholarship, if you want, to be a academic All-American, where are you now? Like, are you leading the pack? The people that are going in that direction, Are
Mhm.
you putting in the work to improve and move in that direction? And it's a slippery slope when you start having that conversation, because there is a little bit of that comparison fuel. But if you take a step back and can accurately say, this is where I'm strong, these are the areas I need to work on, like, then we start focusing on those areas, creating a plan to attack that, um, while maintaining strengths or making the strengths stronger.
Mm-hmm. And what happens when the results that one seeks is not attained? Um, what do we do there? What does that look like? So an example of this is that high school student that wants to make the tennis team and they don't make it, or that college or that high school tennis player wanting to go to college and that doesn't happen, or that college player that wants to turn pro and that doesn't happen. Let's talk about those barriers that we encounter in the tennis world, applicable to all.
Um, One of the really cool things about tennis is that journey isn't over until you say it's over. Now, with other sports, it is. With other sports, if you don't meet the recruitment timeline, you don't meet the getting drafted timeline, uh, you don't have skins on the wall for free agency, then you don't have a say when that's over. But tennis is a sport that it's an individual sport, and even if you don't make it to college, even if you don't get that scholarship, you can still put in the work, you can still play, you can still compete at a higher level. And so one of the unique things is that journey's not over until you say it's over. But if we take it and apply it to other sports, there's more to sports than what you win. There's more to sports than what you get out of them. And when that shift gets made, when it becomes about the process, when it becomes about the person you're becoming, when you take the hard work and toughness and dedication that you put into training in your sport and start applying it to other areas, then the results in your sport become easier. Then if you make it, it becomes icing on the cake. And if you don't, you still have the skills and you're grateful for the experience.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And so,
So no, go ahead.
well, for some
So yeah.
for some athletes, for some parents, it's really hard to wrap their head around the idea of developing dedication and toughness and not accomplishing what you want. Yet
Mm.
for some athletes, when they start embracing that, then it makes the competition easier.
Mm-hmm. And when is it the time to pull the plug, on our endeavor, whether that to be a tennis player in college or professional tennis, or on the various paths that we choose? Like you pulled the plug on your Marine Corps time. There was an end. There was an end to your teaching in high school. There was an end. What have you learned about transitioning from one phase to another? And when is the right time? I'm sure that comes up with your players often.
Um, I love this question, and I'm so glad you asked it, and I wasn't expecting it. I've transitioned at the wrong time more than I have the right time. So out of the Marine Corps, I wasn't happy with how I transitioned. I felt like I was quitting. I felt like I was letting down the people I was serving with. Um, um, after the Marine Corps, uh, I've had a couple of incredible jobs where I felt stuck, and the only option that I saw was to move on, as opposed to take a step back and look at my situation, or take a hard look at me. This last transition is uh, from high school into college coaching. I'm incredibly proud of. Um, And it's because I went from somewhere that was secure and safe and stable into an unknown, and in the direction of the idea of creating a bigger impact. And so to answer your question about the transition piece, when is it the right time to quit? It comes down to, are you enjoying what you're doing? If you are, then keep going. Are you moving in the direction that you want to go? Then if you are, keep going. It shouldn't come down to needing a paycheck. It shouldn't come down to needing a title. What it should come down to is, are you on the path that you're going to be proud of 5 years from now? And my frustration that I had in education was when I took a step back and looked, and I didn't think 2022 could be any better than 2019. Like, best case scenario, this past school year could be what 2019 was. And that felt like a huge step back. And so for me, how could I step forward? And it's not even college coaching. College coaching has been an extra. It was finding the degree program that's allowing me to build this business.
Mhm. And so often people choose not to move forward in that direction because of fear, because of that thing that you said, the unknown, the fear of the unknown. How do you advise your players that you coach on facing fear and stepping into their unknown?
Once it's acknowledged that it's fear, then the question is, what's the opposite of fear? And so I'll pose that to you guys. What is the opposite of fear?
What comes to my mind is thriving.
Bianca?
Thriving. What comes to my mind is love.
So when fear is what's holding you back, the question would be, now, Derek, how do you step towards thriving? Bianca, how do you step towards love? And then from there, it becomes your answers. And sometimes it might be staying where you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow.
So you've met many different mentors and allies along that way that have helped contribute to this ideology that you bring to the table in this conversation and your being. Let's take a moment to acknowledge some of the key mentors and helpers that have helped you along your path. Who were they, and what were the key takeaways you learned from them that you've incorporated into your being?
The first I have to mention is like Coach Hopkins. Like, my high school coach, my wife's high school coach, my parents' coach. The first match that I coached as a high school coach, he came out and watched. And one of the players that I'd been working with prior to taking the job comes up to me while I was talking to him and goes, "Hey, coach." And I stop and look at him. And he waited a second, smiled, and goes, "She's not talking to me." And so the idea of like having that lasting impact, the lasting impact that he had on me, that he had on my parents. And I don't even know how he did it. Like, I can think back and guess, but that's the biggest takeaway for me from Coach Hopkins is that lasting impact. Another one of my mentors, and she's the one that introduced the idea of the personal philosophy, is Dr. Ann Pankhurst. And she was incredibly real. And what I mean by that, if something was messed up, she would drop the F-bomb and tell you you're messed up. If something was great, she would tell you you're great. And at one of the trainings that I was at with her, she asked me to get another coach who was pretending to be a student to do something specific by only asking questions. Serve out wide with a slice serve, get her to do that, only ask questions. And so like I started, and 2 questions in, she stops me and calls everyone else over. Like, so 20 coaches from across the country come in, like, and they're all watching me coach her asking questions. And so like, I tightened up, like pucker factor, like 1,000. She walked over, she goes, "It's all right, you got this." Asked her a question, which was gonna be my next question. It was literally, I knew, like without a doubt. And then she looked at me, smiled, and stepped away. And so it's that idea of creating a personal philosophy, that idea of asking good questions to lead to a response. My current coach, mentor, Mark England, like the dude is amazing, and is changing coaching through language, through story work, and through teaching it. I've leveled up more in the last 2 years as a coach because of that work. And then the On It guys, Shane Hines and John Wolf, they are on such another level with their knowledge and the way they show up. Can that be achieved in this lifetime? I've asked myself after my interactions with both those guys on multiple occasions.
So if
What
I
was
ask
it
this,
about-
go ahead, Bianca.
Well, I was curious about what it was about these people that seems like they are such on a different level. What are the qualities that really stood out about them?
All of them are present. Like, so as you ask that question, like interactions like flash through my mind, and all of them are so in the moment with who they're interacting with. And it's almost like they know what's coming next. And where does that knowing come from? Like, maybe it's the reps, maybe it's the higher, coming from a higher place. Maybe it's reading people, the situation, but there's such calm confidence in that knowing.
Thank you.
And what I was going to say, if I ask this question to those you coached, how will you be remembered? What is the legacy that you're leaving with those you coach? How do you want them to speak of you? What are the things that you're trying to teach them?
The number one thing I hope my students learn is that they are in control of so much more than they know, from their actions to interactions to thoughts and beliefs. And how will that leave me being remembered? I hope it's the same way that I've talked about my mentors, my coaches, that presence, that caring, that being in the moment.
So from the thousands or tens of thousands that you've coached, what is getting in the way of that? What is stopping them? What is the primary barriers that you're seeing that need to be overcome in order to best thrive, and in order to best perform and show up?
Um, fear of the unknown, fear of failing, and sometimes fear of success, fear of judgment, and um, recognizing that all of those fears are external. Um, and when that recognition happens, then we can talk about translating that fear into something that's empowering, from thriving to love to whatever that individual says.
Mhm. Where does fear show up in your life today?
Um, it doesn't live for very long. So when it does show up, um, I recognize it really quickly and translate it fast. Um, the talk I gave in November in front of a high school, I showed up the day before, walked the stage, visualized it full of teenagers, got there early to feel one with the place, and 30 Vietnam vets walked in. I did not imagine that, and I was nervous. Imposter syndrome set in, like, who am I to talk to them? To one breath being like, no, I've chosen to stand up there, and to the second breath being like, I'm going to honor their stories too. To the third breath, I got it. Like, so that's the biggest, most memorable. Um, smallest was coming on the podcast today. You guys are amazing, and I've listened to several of your episodes and know of several people that several of your guests, and um, like fighting the Wi-Fi to get on. Like, no, I'm going to be on today.
Yes.
We appreciate it. Mhm. Another thing that I like to talk about, because I know you're super passionate about it, is the steel mace. Let's talk all things mace. For those that aren't familiar with what that is, give us the lowdown and what you've learned from the mace.
So the mace is meant to move, and you can move fast, you can move slow and create tension. The mace is the absolute most versatile piece of equipment, and like, it allowed me to recreate childlike wonder, imagining a freaking ninja blocking blows to swinging it around, and imagining like pulling energy in and feeling recharged after moving for 5 or 10 minutes. Like, the mace doesn't resonate with everyone, and at first I was like, what do you mean you don't like it? To like, cool, let's find something else. And then when someone asks about the mace, like, seeing them light up when they feel it pull them one way and have to fight to balance in the other direction, or unlocking a new move. Those are things that are special and unique to the mace.
Mm-hmm. Another thing I know you're very passionate about that I like to talk about is the power of language. What is that?
So when I say abracadabra, what do you think of?
With my word, I create.
With my word, I create a wizard, magic. And the idea of with my word, I create is so powerful. With my word, I influence. When I found my current role, the grad assistant and the program, because I was frustrated at school with something specific that happened. And I was like, I'm so like, fill in the blank done. And like, I'm just like, I'm so done. And then I took a breath, and the response was calm. Cool. What are you going to start? Like, and so I was like, okay, what am I going to start? And so language is taking whatever words you're using, taking the power of language is taking whatever words you're using, whatever thoughts you have, and changing it to create whatever it is you want. And so no one wants to be angry, pissed off. No one wants to be done. But then if you do accept that, what do you want to start? Where do you want to go? Yeah, I can keep going on language, brother.
Yeah. So how have you taught this to your players, to your tennis players? How have you empowered them with the power of language? Could you exemplify one such instance?
One instance is like an athlete saying, I can't fill in the blank. Another is a student, whether it's an athlete or PE kid or anyone you're teaching, and you ask them a question and they say, I don't know. In those two instances, I always followed up with, cool, what can you do? You know, I can't do this, what can you do? Someone out of frustration says, I don't know. Cool, what do you know? And that answer can be as open, it's meant to be open-ended. I know the sky is blue. Right? I know we're on Zoom. Like, it can be something incredibly obvious, but what it does is it switches them out of this I can't or not knowing and starts looking, it switches their brain to look for answers, look for solutions. The other piece to this is teaching architect and conflict language. So the three components to the conflict language are negations, soft talk, and projections. So negation is can't, don't, won't, all the stuff you can't do. Projections is blaming something outside of you for it. She makes me mad. And soft talk is adding the probablys, mights, maybes, taking whatever you're trying to say and softening it up. We were scheduled for one. We weren't scheduled around one today. So once that's pointed out to athletes, then the tools to translating conflict language into something empowering, is there.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. So many lessons and wisdom shared. I know Bianca and I are very grateful, and I'm sure the parents, the students, the athletes, everyone that you are involved with in your coaching benefit from this greatly. What have you learned about aligning goals? Aligning the goals of a parent and the goal of the athlete, aligning the goals of the coach with the team, and aligning the goals of the university with their athletics. How can we get on the same page?
I'll start with the universe. If the universe speaks, I will listen. So other than listening, I am not sure what influence I have on the universe. But as far as athletes, coaches, and parents, let's set the coaches aside first. What does an athlete want to get out of whatever sport they're playing? Usually it's to win. Usually it's to progress to another level. It's something tangible. What parents could want from athletes is for them to recognize the connection of hard work to success, recognize emotional control, learn skills that will apply in other areas of their life. The way to create alignment between athletes and parents is to have the conversation. Mom, what do you want little Johnny to get out of this sport? And for the kid to hear that response. The other piece is for athletes to share with their parents what they're working on with their coaches. Trying to do, learn a new skill or execute a certain play or be more physical in the defense, whatever it is they're working on with their coach, with their team. Once the parents are in the loop, they'll also know what to look for during competition. So it becomes so much more than just the result.
Mm-hmm.
Coaches should be proactive members in that conversation. And so many times coaches look at a parent and be like, hey, you're paying me to coach them, drop your kid off, go away. And that 1 hour, 2 hours a week, there's a disconnect between what the coach is saying and everything else that's happening in that athlete's life. And so communication between the coach, the parent, the athlete is huge. One of the things that I do to facilitate that is the parents and the athletes are in a group text with me. And so at the end of some lessons, I'll craft the text message with the kid that's going into that group. And so it's coming from me, yet the kid knows exactly what's being said. We covered this and this today. For the next tournament, these are the things we're focusing on. And I found that's made the conversations. One, it opens the door for parents to talk to their kids, because when a parent asks a kid, hey, how'd it go? Oh, it went good. What'd you work on today? Small one-word answers, where this text now allows the parent to ask more informed questions about what happened.
Mm-hmm. I think that's really powerful. Starting that conversation and clarifying what we want out of what we're doing, out of the game that we're playing. And then this brings me to my next question, and that is, what are your intentions with this game that you're playing? Not the game of tennis, not the game of coaching, but the game of life. And let's speak this to the universe.
My intentions are to be around as many like-minded and people as I can, and to teach what I know, and to hopefully have a positive influence on the world, so that some of those like cool and like-minded people come from some of what I've taught.
It's happening.
It
happening,
is.
I know. So through all the highs and lows that is this wonderful game of life, what would you say has been the number one life lesson that you've learned on the path thus far that you feel called in this moment to share with us and all those listening in?
To keep learning and to teach what you learn.
To keep learning and to teach what you learn. Powerful.
No.
Can't go wrong with that. That brings us to the final two questions. Every episode we end with these final two questions, and this is that time. In 3 words, how would you describe the experience you are having on this earth?
The 3 words part makes this really hard.
They don't have to go together.
The awe, like searching for awe, creating awe, excitement, I would say awe and excitement.
That's
I'll
2.
use my third. I was gonna use and. I was gonna use and as one of my 3.
Awe, excitement,
excitement, and fun.
Beautiful. All excitement and fun. What a ride. What a ride that you are on. That I can't wait to see what is next. What is next to come on this journey. We'll take a peer in the future. I'm going to fast forward us many years from now, and we're going to be alongside an 85-year-old Clint Laukhuf. Who is that 85-year-old Clint? Where are you? Who you're surrounded by? And what is the legacy that you've left here in your 85 years?
So I'm planning on being over 150. So I'll be in my midlife crisis.
I love that.
What's really exciting about that is I don't know, because 30-year-old me would not recognize 40-year-old. 20-year-old me would not recognize 30-year-old me. I thought about this question, and I would recognize 20-year-old me walking by, but he wouldn't know who I was. And so 85-year-old me, it's going to be badass. But I'm not sure what that'll look like. And that's exciting.
And that's okay.
For sure.
I believe that you can feel into that 85-year-old. So I want you to just close your eyes, connect with your breath for a few moments, and feel into that 85-year-old spirit, that 85-year-old's energy, that 85-year-old's awe, that 85-year-old's excitement, that 85-year-old's fun. And I'll bring us back to the current now. And that 85-year-old Clint, he sends you a message. What does he whisper in your ear?
Keep going. You're capable of so much more than you know.
Aren't we all?
Aren't we all?
Wise words, 85-year-old Clint. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for showing up in this conversation. It's been a real honor and pleasure catching back up, hearing more of your story, sharing your wisdom. Bianca, let's close with some last words from you, your reflections on this conversation.
Yeah, I'm happy to reflect a little bit of what I've heard, because personally, I was teaching in schools, so there's parts where I can relate on how we connect with our students, and I see how you're holding space for all the people that are learning from you, and this is so transformative, and I feel very excited and grateful that there are coaches like that out there, so is spiritually aware and able to guide the energy for people to not only step into a higher embodiment of themselves, but also creating those connections between people and learning how to communicate with clarity and really creating the realities we want through our mindset. All these lessons, this is so powerful. So already this embodiment is incredible. So I'm very happy to reflect that. I'm very grateful that I got to listen to your wisdom today, and that more people are going to be able to tune in with that. And I can't wait to see what else unfolds. 150, no doubt, 150 years old or more. There's some time for beautiful shifts to happen, and the shifts are ongoing, and with this kind of mentality we just allow it to flow effortlessly. So thank you for sharing so much.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And for those wanting to connect with you, you're on Instagram at coach_Clint_L, or they can find your athletes first at athletesfirst_1ST. Is there anywhere else I can send them, Clint?
No, that's perfect. One of the guys that just graduated from the team this year is partnered with me, and there's about to be a lot more content on Athlete First. Like we're on a mission. So,
Mhm. To create the biggest impact possible.
biggest
And it's
impact.
happening.
Thank you, Derek.
To close every conversation, we bring our fist in for a digital fist bump, step into the winner circle of choice. Boom. Thank you so much, Clint. Thank you so much, Bianca. And that is a wrap on today's beautiful conversation.
Thank you.